Welcome to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the largest grassroots advocacy network for people with mental illness and their family members, with over 800 national affiliates and 15 Kansas affiliates, with NAMI Wichita being one of those 15. We provide awareness, support, education, and advocacy for people affected by mental illness. Our purpose here is to provide a community conversation on KSUN Community Radio that provides insight into what it's like to live with a mental illness. Our intention and hope is that our program will change attitudes, assumptions, and stereotypes about people with mental health conditions. My name is David Larson. I am very pleased and proud to be your host today, and I am a person with mental illness. I am in recovery for major depressive disorder. Like everyone, I struggle with the ups and downs of emotions and the challenges of being fully human, but I am doing okay. And I know I have many gifts to offer my family, my friends, and my community. And it is my pleasure to introduce our guest for today, Officer James Hook. Hello, Officer.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Officer Hook is a CIT officer, and Officer Hook, I'm going to ask you, can you please explain to our audience what CIT means?
Yes, CIT is a Crisis Intervention Team Officer. They are officers that have additional training in dealing with persons with mental illness, and they utilize very much a team approach with resources around the community, with extra knowledge to be able to connect individuals with those resources when they need them.
Okay, so it's not just what I was thinking. You are called out to a situation and you get to talk with someone who is dealing with a mental health crisis. It includes other things as well.
Yes, it includes quite a bit. It's one of those where you think of it kind of as a toolbox, and we're adding a lot of different tools to that toolbox. So when we're getting called to a scene if somebody's suicidal or they're in crisis and they're very worked up, the officers can respond, and they have additional tools and training in speaking and listening to that individual to be able to help kind of de-escalate the situation, calm them down, see what the issues and concerns are, and then from there be able to connect them to the community resource that's going to best work with them and be able to provide them the help that they need at that time.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. So how long have you been a CIT officer?
I have been a CIT officer for probably going on about 6 or 7 years now.
6 or 7, that's fantastic. And about how many CIT officers does Wichita Police Department have?
We are roughly 25% trained of our department.
Okay.
So we have about 650 commissioned officers for our department. And so right around 20 to 25% of those have been
around
through.
160 maybe.
Mm-hmm. Right in
right?
there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. I'm trying to do the math in my head. I hope I got that right.
That's why the steam was coming out of your ears?
Yeah, that's exactly why. You got it. So, let's see. What else? How many CIT calls do you get in a month?
We get quite a few just mental health related calls in general. They say on average about 6 to 10% of all 911 calls that come in are mental health related. And I don't think that's any different for our department that we see. So not all of them will be specific to CIT. Some of the calls that come in, they'll request a CIT officer. We try and make the public aware, especially to the families and those who either live with somebody with a mental illness or those that live with a mental illness themselves. If we can make them aware of the CIT officers and what we do, so when they are in crisis and they're calling 911, they can request us out, and as long as we have somebody available, we'll be able to respond.
Okay. So
what kind of an increase have you seen over the years as far as from the time that you started now to the number of calls you're seeing now? Is it on the increase?
It's hard to compare the exact numbers. It feels like it's on an increase. It feels like we see this stuff more and more. A lot of it is just when people are in crisis or families have somebody that they have a child that's growing up and enters into crisis for the first time. Most of us don't know what resources and who to call for help, except for 911. That's
Right.
always the number that's been ingrained in everybody. If you need help, you call 911,
911.
and the police will show up, and the police can fix all the problems. So we get a lot of those calls to go out and help somebody when they are in crisis, first off, because they don't know what other resources are there. So being able to train and work with them and help them connect to those other resources are really great. It's a good feeling all the way around.
Okay. Well, I want to take a brief moment here to thank our production team, David Peterson, our executive producer, and Mike Padilla for being our technical producer. This is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio, and we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Our Own Voice is intended to humanize the misunderstood, highly stigmatized topic of mental illness by showing that it's possible and common to live well with a mental health condition. And Officer Hook, during our break, we were talking and you mentioned some really great things, some words that you have concerning stigma. So what can you share with our audience about stigma?
Yes, stigma is one of those things that kind of amazes me that it's still around so strong today. We have everybody, the people that live with a mental illness are so concerned with the stigma and the public, what they're going to think, that they don't often reach out to get the help. If you have somebody that has a broken leg, they're not afraid to go talk to a doctor. You know what's wrong. You're not afraid to talk about your broken leg and go get the help and treatment that you need to fix that broken leg. The mental health and mental illness should be no different in today's society. If you have somebody that's suffering from bipolar disorder or major depressive disorder, we should not have that stigma in place that makes them feel like they can't talk about it or that they'll be looked down upon because they have that illness. They should be able to go to the doctor, talk to the doctor about the concerns and the illness that they have so they can get the medication, they can get the treatment, and they can get the help that they need to get over it. And until we can get the stigma to be reduced in today's society and get people to talk about it and not be afraid of it or not be ashamed of it, then we've got a long way to go until we can actually effectively treat and work on our mental health issues.
Very true. Thank you for those good words. What we need to underscore is that mental health conditions are because of the organ in your body that's called the brain.
Yes.
And it's a physical ailment that has an environmental trigger. I believe that's how NAMI has put it in some of its literature. So we need to understand that it is a physical ailment with the environmental trigger attached.
Yes. The problem is the brain is much more complicated than, say, a bone or any of the other numerous organs in the body.
Very true.
I've got to stop using my brain for a doorstop. I just need to stop doing that.
Oh, but it works so well, though,
I
doesn't it?
know, right? It does.
So, Officer Hook, what was your first encounter with NAMI?
My first encounter with NAMI, I've known about the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Wichita affiliate, for several years, ever since I went through the CIT training that I went through back in 2013 now.
It mentions
Okay.
it. Did they talk about it in your training?
Yes, they do go over a lot of the other resources that are available, and NAMI Wichita is one of the big ones that we go over. So I've known about it, and then I'd say about 3 years ago now, NAMI Wichita had reached out, the NAMI board had asked for some law enforcement representation to come to the December award ceremony that they have every year. And so some of the supervision had reached out to me and asked if that would be something that I would be interested in. And I do a lot of work with individuals who are mentally ill, so that's something that I kind of hold near and dear. So I said, you know what? I'll reach out to them. I'll see what this is about. And I'd reached out, got the information, was invited to some of the meetings, and was able to go and attend. When I started going to the meetings, our new chief at the time, Chief Ramsey, he reached out to me and thanked me on offering to become the mental health liaison for our police department.
Sounds like you were almost voluntold there.
Almost.
One thing leads to another.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
One thing does lead to another.
So,
And now he's on the board.
exactly.
Yes.
That was my next question. In what ways are you currently participating with NAMI Wichita?
Yes. Well, as of last December, I guess starting in January, I got nominated and voted onto the board of directors for NAMI Wichita. I've been trying to help bridge the gap between individuals that suffer from mental illness or that live with mental illness and their families and law enforcement. Often there's that perception that if you live with a mental illness, you have bad police experiences. You don't necessarily like having the police around, so they can be kind of scary. You don't often know how it's going to be perceived or what's going to happen. So one of my main goals in this position has been to mix and mingle with individuals who live with a mental illness as well as the family members to provide a resource and information to them, and then be able to help provide good encounters and good experiences with the individuals. So as that kind of grew and progressed from there, the next step on that was kind of getting on the board and taking my involvement a little bit further.
Okay. Well, this is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio. We're talking with Officer Hook, and we will be right back after a quick break.
If you would like to learn more about the National Alliance on Mental Illness and how you can get involved in mental health advocacy, please visit our website at nami.org.
Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita, KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So help our listeners understand that every person with a mental health condition can hope for a brighter future. In other words, what words of hope can you, Officer Hook, share with us about those who are living with mental illness?
Well, I think the biggest thing to take away from it is it does get better. There is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. The problem is the process of getting there sometimes can seem like the darkest days, and they are not the most fun. It's going to be rough. There's going to be a lot of bumps, but the resources are there, and we can get the help, and we can do it together.
That's true. Those are great words.
Fantastic.
Yeah. David, you have a number for us, don't you?
Yes, I just wanted to mention, first of all, anybody listening to the show hears this music beforehand. David Larson composed that, and it's just very peaceful and fantastic. And Mike, we appreciate your help on the technical side. And Officer Hook, we really appreciate your service to us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Those that are interested in our NAMI programs, and we have a lot of programs, we have ongoing, we have a lot of support groups available. Please give us a call at 316-686-1373. That's 316-686-1373. And that's an answering service, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. You can also email us at info@namiwichita.org. You can go to our webpage, www.namiwichita.org. And we also have a Facebook page available. But it's just the stigma that Officer Hook is talking about, and reducing that is something I think that we just, hopefully NAMI is involved in helping reduce that.
That's right. We have awareness, advocacy, support, and education. That's right. We got the 4 pillars now. We've got that hammered down.
All
I was
right.
having a hard time last time I was recording on remembering those 4 pillars.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what it
Last
was.
time there was only 3 pillars, right?
Yeah, exactly.
right,
Because
okay.
I forgot awareness, I think.
Yes, I think you did.
So it's a little
So-
stronger this time.
That's right. You betcha.
But the point is that there's always support.
Mm-hmm.
And as Officer Hook said, hope. That is something that NAMI really stresses, that there's always hope.
Yep. So, Officer Hook, you have a family.
I do.
Tell us about your family. What can you tell us about your family? I mean, how many kids do you have?
I am married, and I have 4 kids total.
4
So,
kids. Awesome.
The
Wow.
youngest is 3, and the oldest is 12. So it's,
Oh, wow.
it can be a full house.
That's right.
Mhm.
And the 12 is almost approaching into those teenage years when it's absolutely scatterbrained.
Yes. But luckily, he does pretty good. He's the only boy in a house full of girls.
Oh, wow.
So
that's
he's-
tremendous.
But he is the
He's had to
oldest, though,
learn a
too,
lot.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
So he's got the most responsibility placed upon him. But he's a pretty good kid.
So when you're not home, he's the man of the house.
And so he
Yep.
has to look out for his little sisters.
That's right.
That's excellent. That's a really
Yeah,
good way to do that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So how long have you been married?
I've been married going on 7 years. It'll be 7 years this next month.
Wow.
Okay.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
And what I liked about it, because we talked obviously between the break, you're a lifelong Wichitan,
I am born and raised.
born and raised. Which hospital?
I was born at St. Joe.
St. Joe. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, there's a lot of stuff that we have in common. People understand. And I also found out he's a West Sider.
That's right. Can I share that you are a West Sider, that you are from the Orchard area?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's an
No, you
Orchard.
can't do that.
He's an Orchard kid.
Oh, it's too late. It's too late.
Oh, well.
It's out there.
Yeah, he's
Well-
an Orchard kid. He's a great kid. So.
Growing up on the west side of town, the Orchard kids they stood up for themselves.
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
Nothing better than running around during the summer, going to the pool when it finally opened, be gone all day, sun up to sundown.
right.
Yep.
hmm
And you did fun things back then, right? So, let's see, what else can we talk about here?
I'm wondering, have you ever entered into a situation whereas you felt unsafe yourself but managed to get out of it using your training?
I think so. I get into those situations quite a bit because anytime we get dispatched or entered into a call, we don't always know what we're walking into.
Right.
We may have very limited information, or even the information that we get, depending on who's calling in and giving us that information, may not be giving us everything or the whole truth. And so we have to get out, get on scene, start asking questions, sparking up that dialogue to figure out kind of what's going on, what the concerns are, what the problems are, and then try and process all that information as we're fumbling through the conversation to try and decide what's going to be the best outcome and what we're wanting.
And I'm going to have to cut you off there. We're going to take a quick break. This is Our Own Voice and KSUN Community Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Own Voice, a partnership in mental health awareness in cooperation with NAMI Wichita and KSUN Community Radio. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And to repeat, David Peterson, what information can you give us concerning our number?
Well, our number is 316-686-1373. Again, that's an answering machine, and we'll get back with you as soon as possible. But what I failed to mention the time before was that all of our programs, all of our support groups are no charge. We are all volunteers, and we either are a person with a mental illness or we have a family member with a mental illness. And we like to have our own support. And so consequently, we like to give the support. And our programs have been very, very well documented as being very helpful for either those with a mental illness or the family member. And again, it's 316-686-1373.
Okay. And we've been talking with Officer Hook. Officer Hook, what other information can you give us about the CIT program? When did it start in the United States? What information can you share?
Well, the CIT program and the whole concept for it started in Tennessee in the early 2000s with actually a NAMI affiliate down there had lost a family member in a police shooting incident. And so it kind of sparked the idea of how can we better work and train law enforcement and come up with a way so that we can avoid seeing these kinds of things happen when somebody's just in a mental health crisis.
Okay.
So,
and you said that was the early 2000s?
yeah.
So really the CIT program is fairly new. Well, fairly new as far as I'm concerned, because 2000s is old for some people.
Yeah. It's a newer concept.
Yeah.
We brought it to Sedgwick County in 2007 is when we
Okay.
started working on training the officers, both between all the jurisdictions of Sedgwick County, and we've trained several outside of Sedgwick County that have come through. I think all in all, since it started, we've done over 500 officers trained.
Okay. Well, that leads me to another question that I have for you, and that is there a plan or a projected plan to try to train all officers in CIT, or is there always going to be some officers that are not CIT trained?
Well, that's kind of a concept shift between agencies and CIT councils that train. There are some agencies out there that train 100% of their officers in the CIT program when they go through the academy. We try and wait at least a couple years so an officer can get out on the street, start to develop their own skills, their own rapport, the way for talking and recognizing certain circumstances and situations as they go through. And then when they kind of have their footing on being a police officer, we can expand on their toolkit and provide them with all of the resources for the CIT program. And to kind of help offset that, in the meantime, we provide all of them with what we call mental health first aid. So instead of a week-long or 40-hour training for CIT, we give them a one-day, 8-hour training on recognizing mental illness and different communication techniques and things that they can do with that.
Yeah.
But it's still relatively new to not just our department, but to departments all around the country.
Yes.
Okay. What would you say about the number of mental health patients or mental health people that are in the jail system right now?
Well, there's quite a few. They say 25% of anybody who suffers from a mental illness will wind up arrested or incarcerated at some point. And we know that someone who suffers from a mental illness will stay in jail longer than those who are arrested for the exact same crime that don't have a mental illness. So luckily here in Sedgwick County, we have what's called a mental health pod for our Sedgwick County jail. And we have a huge number of CIT trained deputies for that jail. So they're working with these individuals, and we're providing them a lot of the resources and mental health help, counseling, medications to help try and get them stable and get them through and on their road to recovery.
Okay. Yes, David. Oh, I thought David was going to interject something there. What number is that again, David?
That's 316-686-1373.
Well, Officer Hook, you have enlightened us on what CIT is, when it started here in Wichita. You also helped us to understand that if people are in the midst of crisis and they need help with a mental health issue or mental health condition, that it would be a wise choice for them to call request a CIT officer, right?
Don't be
right.
afraid to pick up the phone and call.
That's right.
In most cases, you got a phone in your pocket. You should use it.
That's right.
Yep.
So, well, this is Our Own Voice on KSUN Community Radio, and we want to thank Officer Hook and for talking with us about mental illness and the CIT program. Join us for our next Our Own Voice program. Thank you.
Thank you.